That's a good way to start our first episode. All right, so we are here for our first episode of Let's Talk About Gay Stuff. Yay! Woo-hoo! All right, so welcome to our new podcast. It's called Let's Talk About Gay Stuff, where we talk about gay stuff. So we're three guys, Tony.
Kendall.
You want to say hi, Tony?
Hi, Tony. No.
Kendall.
Oh, hi, yes, Kendall.
And me, Thomas. We're new at this. We're friends, and we enjoy spending our Friday nights nerding out and debating about current events, politics, and history, and pop culture. So we thought, why not put microphones in front of us and a glass of wine and see where this goes? So this should be entertaining. What you'll hear in our podcast is us reflecting about the week in gay history. So we'll talk about today. This episode's going to air on June the 2nd. So we're going to talk about the week that's coming, June 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, right? So you'll hear a little history and a lot of fun as we discuss impactful events and people in the context of how it affected the LGBT community and culture as well as society in general, because we think we've had a significant impact on society. And then we'll also give our own take in terms of how it affected our own journeys through life. So just a disclaimer, right? We're not historians, but we do enjoy studying this stuff. We will get our fun perspective and hopefully a lot of humor as we talk about the topics, events, and people we discuss. So we are very excited to be, hosting this podcast, and we hope the folks that are listening enjoy it just as much as we do. So yes. All right. So before we get too far into this, we got to pay the bills. So our sponsor, of course, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Economy Works, a freelance talent network that connects professionals with project work. So if you're a company that needs help with writing job descriptions, conducting market analysis, managing your social media platforms, Economy Works has an extensive talent network of freelance professionals ready to help you do more with less. Economy Works. When we work, the economy works. All right, so we've got the business out of the way. So this month is Pride Month. We're kicking off Pride Month. What do we? Mm-hmm. That'll be fun. This will. I'm always looking forward to Pride Month. I didn't truly embrace the whole celebration of Pride Month until the last few years. I've had a lot of fun in all the parades and events and whatnot.
Boy, have you embraced it since.
I sure have. Do you remember the first Pride?
Boy, have you
parade? You won't remember it because you were.
Tipsy.
A little tipsy. But the first Pride event I went to was here in Houston back in 2009, and you had your friends come in from Louisiana.
Oh, God.
What a mess. Do you remember that messy
No.
event? You don't remember it because it was pretty...
Thankfully, he blacked out.
Bad.
If the story begins with your friends came in from Louisiana, I will not remember it.
Yes.
You don't have to ask.
As a standing rule.
Yeah.
So Kendall at one point we're hailing a taxi because which was hard to do in Houston because there are no taxis in Houston. So thank goodness for
Pre-Uber.
Yeah, pre-Uber. And so we're trying to hail a taxi. And we luckily find one. I'm trying to get everyone in. Kendall's deciding to hail his own taxi, which happens to be a police car.
Ooh.
Try to get in the back seat.
Which you probably wanted.
He probably let you.
I'm surprised you didn't end up in the backseat of a cop car later that night because there was a lot of drama. Me and his best friend Martha, we got into a little bit of back and forth, and there's a famous line from there that we like to use, don't get so emotional about everything. And so
Well, the reason is because I took off running when I realized it was a cop car and got lost.
Montrose, all in Montrose?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, this was Midtown. And then I woke up on someone's lawn in River Oaks.
Well, no, you actually made it. You actually got into a cab. You got in a cab with Martha, and so you guys get in this cab, wind up in front of JR's where they used to have the parade, right? In Montrose. And so you get out, and then all of a sudden you run for who knows where you're running to, running off to nowhere.
Towards my destiny.
And that's where, and you got lost that night. We didn't find him until way in the middle of the night. But that's where and because I went into a different car than Martha, that had a different cab, I got there first. And so when she shows up, I'm like, hey, where's Kendall? Where's my boyfriend? Which, by the way, we're not boyfriends anymore. But I said, where's Kendall? And she's like, I don't know. And she starts breaking down. And I was like, Martha, stop crying. But I was like, what do you mean you don't know? How do you lose?
Did you stay in the cab?
No, we got out of the cab and started running.
Towards River Oaks.
Which was not. We lived in Midtown, so it was running in the opposite direction.
I do remember knocking on people's doors and asking for water.
Oaks.
Yeah. And saying, I just need water, please.
Did anyone answer?
No, but they turned their lights off.
Yeah. So he winds up on a yard. He winds up at like in River Oaks, the River Oaks Shopping Center. That's where he winds up. Again, we live in Midtown Houston.
Yeah, wow.
So on the opposite direction, which
And that's not a short hike from Montrose.
All right, these are all allegations.
and we had some other friends that also got lost that night as well. And again, we live in Midtown, so it's like walk towards the direction of the the tall buildings downtown. But no, everyone
Walked away from
they
downtown.
walked away from downtown. It's just like so. It was pretty epic.
Memory.
Epic. So yeah, one thing I know, I broke my phone that night because I couldn't get a hold of him, so I threw it at the wall. I'm not violent, but I was like, I can't. I was frustrated.
Okay, I'm finished with the story.
But no, because it gets better.
Anyways.
He leaves a voicemail on like mine and Martha's phone. He's like, "Help! I need water." Like, because he was dehydrated. It's like.
But you had
90
no idea where he was.
I was
No.
roofied in my own home.
Yeah. No idea where he was.
By yourself. You're like, Roofie.
Martha finally gets a hold of him and goes and picks him up. And yeah, the next day, all he can remember is that he lost his camera. And so,
Okay, but that's on season 2 of Let's Talk About Gay Stuff.
yeah, he lost his
So
camera.
then Thomas and Kendall are like, oh my God, I love Pride. Let's do this every year.
Right. So we did fake out Martha one year or two. A couple of years later in DC, there was a cop car and we had to take a picture in front of it. Like you were getting arrested, and she got nervous. We sent it to her. Like I sent her the picture, and I said, "Help!" And she was like,
my
"Oh my gosh!"
God.
She was ready. She was like calling people, her friends. She's like, "I gotta get to." She was living in Louisiana at the time. She's like, "I gotta get to DC." So that was that, and then yeah, some fun times at Pride. You guys have any fun Pride stories?
That wasn't a fun one
That was
for
fun
me.
for me.
I've never actually had any crazy Pride stories.
Tell
I mean,
me,
I've had
Sarah.
plenty of crazy stories.
You
in
have
my
no
life, but
pride?
I've been to Pride. I've had fun, but it's never been super crazy for me.
Out of town Prides. Have you done those? Like
I've only done Houston Pride.
only
Tony,
Houston?
do you ever get like knockout drunk?
Oh, yes, a
Crazy. Really? I don't think I've ever seen you. I think that's because I get there right before
Or
you do.
because you
Or right
pass
after.
out before he does.
That's what I'm saying.
No, I've been there, just not on Pride, but yes.
What does drunk Tony look like?
Well, this is my worst extreme case ever. So, well, I mean, actually, I feel like, I probably look and act like any other drunk person, but my most extreme case ever was my friend's birthday. We went to dinner and, started doing tequila shots at dinner, kept going out. And I basically woke up in shorts and a t-shirt that weren't mine on some bathroom floor. I'm like, where the fuck am I? Let me get out of here. No keys, no wallet. I walk outside. I'm like, no idea where the fuck I am. Let me go back in and just sleep on this bathroom floor. So I am sleeping on the bathroom floor, and in the morning, this was in the middle of the night. So in the morning, I hear upstairs. So I go up and I'm like, so an ex-boyfriend's best friend, I was in his house. And I was like, what the fuck happened? And basically he goes, you were leaving the bar, walking to your car, and you were staggering. And so I was leaving the bar. He was fine. He goes, he cannot drive home. And so I went up to you and was like, hey, you need to go home, with me or whatever. And so I was like, okay. And apparently I, on the way, I opened up the window, threw up. So he threw my clothes in the laundry, got me, put me in the downstairs bathroom. Yeah.
You definitely had sex with him.
No. No, he's not that type.
Was
But
I that friend?
It's like, oh.
That was my craziest ever. But it
Oh.
wasn't on Pride. Just a random break. But yes, I've been there, done that.
It was a Monday.
Yeah. Oh, it was a
Yeah.
Tuesday.
I haven't been to that many. Kendall, any besides DC and Houston? You were there in were you in San Francisco when
Yes, I was in San Francisco the day gay marriage Supreme Court ruling came.
No way.
Which was also San Francisco Pride.
Oh, no way.
But it didn't feel any more crazy than normal.
yeah.
It was just a normal crazy day. I think people expected it to happen, but it was still a lot of fun.
I remember Houston Pride that week. So Houston was the weekend after, and it was crazy. Yeah. Sorry.
No,
can't
that
go
was
out.
it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it got crazy because I went to one bar, sat on a bar stool,
Stayed
was
there.
there all night, and then made my way back to the hotel.
How boring.
I know, right? I have more
Boring.
interesting nights on random Wednesdays.
Tuesday nights. All right. So before we get into our topics, because the way with this our podcast will flow, we'll try to get to 3 events or people or significant things that happen in LGBT history, because we want this to be fun, but we want it to be informative, and so we'll talk about, again, things that happen this week in gay history. So that's going to be historical events, that'll be legislative events, that'll be famous people being born, or famous people saying something, or not famous, but impactful people to the community, and just things that happened that affected pop culture that have some relevance in the LGBT community. So before we get there to our first topic, anything else happened this week that you guys want to chit-chat about? Tony's got his new job that's working.
Yeah, so I pretty much didn't do anything but work. Well, I know everything about the Golden Girls.
Oh, yes.
My friend Andrea also knows everything about the Golden Girls. So, there was Golden Girls trivia last night, so we're all pumped. We're like, got it. There were probably like about 15 teams.
That's a lot of teams for Golden Girls stuff.
We took 4th place. My friend Andrea, literally, I feel when she woke up today, felt like Hillary Clinton after losing to Trump, and she's going to write a What Happened book. She was so dismayed that we took 4th place, and we only missed...
But what about her emails?
Right. There were 8 rounds of probably 12 questions each, and we missed 6.
6.
Yeah, and some of them were like, you have to... there were like 3 parts, and so out of all that, like, we got 2 of the 3. So we missed 6 things and we took 4th place.
Wow.
Those bitches were fucking competitive.
Who were the nerds that got, are the people with no lives?
I actually don't really know. There was this one table of 6 people that looked, I would say 3 of them were gay men, 3 were straight women, and they probably looked...
Same thing.
Late 30s to mid 40s, and I would have thought they got lower than us, but I do not know who they were. But
no. Were there a lot of gay people? Was it at a gay bar or?
It was actually at a straight bar. So there's
appropriation
Geeks Who Drink trivia that's all over the place, and so it was actually a really cool bar. It was at Net Bar it's a couple blocks off Washington. Mm-hmm. Awesome outdoor space. Yeah, it's great, but straight bar.
Got it. Oh, Golden Girl trivia. So it was a trap. Were you disappointed in the 4th place?
I didn't really care. I just thought it was fun, so I'm not very competitive and like whatever.
A little bit, or just a little bit?
Oh no, I'm fine.
No.
You didn't sleep all night.
Yeah. Oh no.
What about you, Kendall? Anything exciting happen?
Game of Thrones series finale, or is the embargo
How did you
lifted on
feel
that?
about it? I do not watch it, but everybody was a little.
I thought it was good.
I still haven't seen it.
I'm going to be the only person on earth that thinks it's good, but I
haven't seen
thought
the
it tied
season.
up all the loose ends,
Loose ends.
except these at the table.
Hello.
No, I thought it was good,
Yeah.
but since one of us hasn't seen it,
You can't.
yeah.
Yeah, I did a nice job of like avoiding. I think I have an idea of some of the things that happened, but for the most part, I think I did a nice job of avoiding all the major
Most people
spoilers.
that I know don't post anything specific. They just post like, "Oh my god, that was crazy," or "Underwhelmed." Yeah.
I was listening to a radio show where they were talking. They kept referencing it. I was like, I was the only time on I-45 where I was happy my satellite radio was going out, because it always on I-45 inevitably and I-10. So like all the major arteries here in Houston, my satellite radio will go out. Which Spencer all the time is like, why do you pay for this stuff if it's going to cut out? Especially on the major like freeways, which is when you want satellite radio. But anyways, it was the only time I was happy that it kept cutting out, because they kept referencing Game of Thrones, and I was like, no. So, I haven't seen it, but I'm looking forward to binge watching it. All right, so
And
it's
then
good
purging
week.
afterwards.
And purging afterward. So good week then overall.
Good week. Yeah.
Yeah,
Flew by.
An interesting week, but I guess technically, when this is coming out, we would have known who the winner is of RuPaul's Drag Race. But in truth, in terms of how we're recording this, we don't quite know yet. But I'm sure it'll be very exciting nonetheless.
So the finale is next week.
Yes.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So that'll be something we'll have to kiki about soon, because
Yeah.
I've become a fan.
I may actually need to watch it this week so
Yeah.
I can speak about it.
Do you think it's going to be Dame Edna or Divine?
Both. It's going to be a tie. It's going to be the first tie. Actually, I didn't used to watch it.
haven't
Like I
watched
used to
much of this
laugh
even.
at it a lot because Kendall, you and Martha would watch it, and I was like, "This is crazy." But now
You
Spencer,
judged.
I did judge. I did, but now Spencer's like obsessed with it, and because he's younger, like he looks at it differently. Because a lot of people, I think you were like, "Oh, these are my friends." Like you knew some of these drag queens, Kendall, and yeah. But now Spencer looks at it like an art, and so like I'm dissecting what they're doing, and I'm like, I could do that. So I'm not making my appearance
don't think so.
anytime soon. But
I feel
I'm
that's like looking at an artist's piece of work, like, oh, I could do that.
well, I couldn't do it as well. I sure as hell couldn't do all those flips. But I've observed like the techniques they're doing. So I've studied it like a science, like a.
You would look like the maid from Family Guy, the one that says,
Yeah.
no.
I couldn't do that. I don't want to minimize any of the drag queens' work that they do. They work
Thank you.
really hard. I've come to
Thank
appreciate
you.
that. Tony, are you a drag queen? We didn't know this.
No, I'm just support it.
What's your drag name?
I don't know.
What would
my
your drag name be?
I don't know.
You don't know. I said mine was going to be Jenny Tonics.
Tony the Pony because he has a horse dick.
that would be accurate.
That would,
Okay.
What was
Thank you,
yours?
Kendall.
What was yours, Kendall? Christmas candle.
Well, my dad gave me 1,000
Did you do
drag names. No, but when I was a little kid, he started calling. Okay, so my name's Kendall. So it turned into Christmas Candle, which turned into Christmas Chandelier, which turned into Christina, which turned into Chris, which turned
Other
into
than
Chris
Christmas Candle, I don't see the
Christopherson.
link.
It just morphs, you know. There might be some kind of mental disability that runs in the family.
You too.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I have it.
Hashtag you too.
Yes.
So basically, my preacher dad gave me I don't know how many drag names growing up, and then wonders why I'm gay. Thanking you.
Thank you.
Blame Dad. There we go.
Thanks, Dad.
We do thank your dad. Like, what would the gay community be missing out on if Kendall wasn't out? If he was dating
Chlamydia
married
outbreaks.
to a woman, be married to a woman having kids.
Can you imagine?
Poor kiddos.
That would be funny. All right. So let's talk about some gay stuff, huh? Well, some historical gay stuff. So we've got 3 topics we want to try to hit on. And we want to try to talk about a significant president that was born this week. We want to talk about a significant what would you call that? I don't like a significant health issue that has affected the community that was first flagged this week, and then we'll talk about some pop culture stuff at the end. So. Over to you, Tony.
So, yes. So, I want to talk about the first president, the first gay president, and we're not talking about Mayor Pete. So, James Buchanan was the 15th president of the U.S., and he actually passed away this week.
Oh, passed away.
Yeah.
Oh, he was old.
Right. This week, 150 years ago. So, now, the reason I think this is interesting, the reason I want to talk about this, James Buchanan, he was born in the late 1700s, and he had a very successful career in politics. He started in Pennsylvania state politics. He was a U.S. congressperson. He was a senator. He was Secretary of State, and he was president. He was gay, and he had a long-term partner. His partner was also very successful in politics. He started in Alabama state politics, held various positions in Washington, and he was vice president of the United States. And so, although these two guys weren't running around, I'm gay, they were, they did not hide their relationship. Everybody knew about it. Buchanan's cabinet had nicknames for his boyfriend, such as Miss Nancy, Aunt Fancy, his better half. So, it's interesting that in the early to mid 1800s, these, gay men that everybody knew about could have, successful careers, and they weren't banished because of their sexuality. For generations up until this election, if there was an openly gay candidate running for president, I think they would have kind of been dismissed and laughed out of the race. When Anise Parker was elected mayor, the Times of India did a story because it was such big news that a lesbian could get elected to a mayor, big city in Texas. And I don't know if you recall, but in the early 2000s, the governor of New Jersey, Jim McGreevey, he had to step down because it was going to be come public that he was gay. And so...
Well, he was cheating on his wife, though, right?
But if he was a straight man cheating on his wife, would he have to step
he would
down?
have been elected president.
Yeah, would he have had to step down? I don't think so. So I think it was like...
Well, was he a top or a bottom? Because that makes a difference.
He was a top, I think.
Oh, he should have been able to keep his job then.
Yeah. But it's just interesting how 150 years ago, you know, I don't know. So it's weird because I feel we've made a lot of progress, but then sometimes it's like...
But I don't think he was out.
He was not out, but everybody knew, and they didn't hide it, and...
Andrew Jackson called him Miss Nancy.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. Like, if all of these people knew, and they were... And so I actually, like, researched this a little bit, because I thought... And apparently at that time, America was, like, fairly liberal, and the attitude really was, it doesn't affect their ability to hold these public offices, and so... But I mean, like, his own cabinet knew, and they went to work for him, and where I feel like you would think in the 1800s, I mean, gay people would just be banished from all aspects of society.
So you're saying it's not because he's gay that we didn't have another gay president. It's just, well, let me.
No, I'm just saying it's interesting how 150 to 200 years ago, these men that everybody knew as gay, you know, they had very successful careers that they kept ascending, and I feel like...
But he could always deny it. He had some, the love of his life that died, and he was like, I'll never love another woman again. It was kind of his cover.
Right, but that happened in his early 20s, and I feel like for the next however many years. And he apparently... So when he died and when his partner died, when each of them had passed away, they had all these letters to each other, and the family burned all of the letters. And so, because apparently they were very revealing about, and when his partner got not selected to be the ambassador of France, and he moved to France, he went into this severe depression, and even one of his cabinet members' wife said he was never the same after that, and he actually wrote letters saying that he tried to find other male companionship, and he was not successful, and so... Yeah, so I mean, he wasn't definitely walking around saying he was gay, but they didn't really hide their relationship either. And so it's just interesting that, I don't know, I feel like 150 to 200 years later, I mean, some people, you know, don't even have the same...
I read a very short bio on him, and it was... I don't know if they were running with the fact that he was rumored to be gay, but the whole little bio was about how he was a gossip... and he loved to entertain. It was like they threw in so many gay stereotypes, and maybe it was true, but that was like the focus of the bio about how much he was like a sniveling little gossip that.
So it is genetic. People think, you know, the conversation about being gay, whether you're, you know, born with it, maybe, or, you know, it's you choose to. It's like, no, there's a gay gene, and it has to do with gossiping and having good parties. Is that what you're saying? No.
That's what the author of the article was saying.
Yes.
Which is not 100% inaccurate.
Right. I mean, we had a good spread here today, didn't we?
I don't think Abraham Lincoln was gay, though.
I was going to go there.
People attribute him to being gay because of some letters they found. That's just the way people wrote. He was not gay. And also they're using...
slept in a bed with the same guy.
As did many other people. He was like a circuit lawyer who just traveled around blowing guys, but that doesn't mean you're gay.
Right, duh.
And another reason, he was always depressed, so I think they
Lincoln.
assumed he was, they assumed he was struggling with his homosexuality, but I don't think that was it. I think it was many factors.
Well, he did marry Todd. I mean, she's kind of, it's like the beard type.
Yeah, that's a hag. Well, at the National Portrait Gallery, they have cast of his hands. Like, they have a death mask of his face, so you can see, like, exactly what his face looked like. And cast of his hands, and his hands are huge. So you know what that means. So if he was gay, there were lots of little
happy boys.
Yeah.
Maybe he was
getting
a power
that Lincoln
bottom.
log.
A whole new meaning to Lincoln log.
Leave it up to Kendall to bring it there.
So, you know, then it's Buchanan, the reason we haven't had any other gay presidents. He was so bad that people don't care that you're gay. They're just like, we know what happened the last time we had a gay president.
No,
they were the worst.
Think.
No, I'm just
Maybe
kidding.
immediately after, but no.
I'm kidding.
Well, okay, so there were other gay presidents. There could not be 44
I agree.
men that were president.
Like, he was the
I think Nixon was.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt that Nixon was closeted. Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, he had a lot of demons inside. Let's face it, right? Yeah. But he was. I feel Buchanan.
Is that because he was a bottom?
Probably.
Okay.
Sexually frustrated, but I feel
The
Buchanan
demons were inside of
was,
him.
the only bachelor where it was like more obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was another bachelor that later married, and was it Cleveland?
He
was
married
one of the-
in the White
It
House.
was one of the big chunky girls.
Yeah, he was bachelor when he became president, but he got married. I think it was
Cleveland, yeah.
Yeah, Grover Cleveland. Yeah.
Yeah, that. And so now Mayor Pete.
Yeah.
What do we think about Mayor Pete? Do you think he's gonna?
Well, we all
he's
love
got the-
Peter at this table.
Hello.
Hey, girl.
I like his sign, Pete 20, like the 2020, like that's kind of clever. And Pete rather than, although I did see some signs today that said boot edge edge, which are kind of.
I've seen those.
too.
Yeah.
I think if he were the nominee, he would have a good chance. I don't think it would really hurt him, but I don't think he's going to be the nominee.
Can you imagine?
And I don't think it's
though?
because he's gay.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, he's.
Well, if you could come up with the perfect non-threatening gay candidate in a lab, it would be
Right. Exactly.
Pete
yeah.
Booty Hole.
I mean, he's got military
Yeah, he's a
experience.
vet.
Yeah. Yeah.
super smart,
Yeah.
religious.
He
Yeah.
Yeah.
speaks-
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he speaks all languages.
Languages. Yeah.
Yeah, what a
Dothraki.
contrast though. Like if you, Dothraki, what SNL was like, he made up. They were making fun of him. Like he made his own. He was talking some language, and they were like, "What language is that?" He's like, "I made it up on my own." So I made up my own language. But yeah, that would be crazy if he won. Like I think he's got a fighting chance, but I think it's. I mean, now that Biden's in the race and Bernie and those are some big hitters. But we'll see how he does in those debates. But he's a sharp debater because I remember
Yeah.
seeing him in the DNC leadership debates, and those were he was good. So
I would say I kind of agree. I don't think he'll be the nominee, but I do feel he will have some position in Washington after this because I feel like he is just so well qualified that I think whoever ends up being president, if it's a Democrat, will probably appoint him something. Do
So if
agree
you follow him on, I'm sorry, because I was thinking of something. If you follow him on Twitter and go back to the days before he was out of the closet, which I think was 2015, you can see him talking about like cars and girls, and
Oh, girl.
it's actually really cute because he's not mayor yet. He's just like this average Midwestern guy who's pretending to like girls and care about guy stuff.
I think he did, and he can't do it now, which is, I guess, the unfortunate thing. So it'll also be nice if he doesn't win, then he can shave his head. I think with that clean cut that he had when he was in the military, it was like he was. Now he's got a head full of hair, which looks very. I think he's been compared to Alex P. Keaton, and so
Alfred E. Newman, yeah.
Although Alex P. Keaton, I say Alex P. Keaton. Of course, my boyfriend, who was born in the '90s, has no clue who. He's googling Alex P. Keaton right now because he's like, "Who is that?"
Can you tell me who that is?
Family.
Because
You
I
don't know who it.
that.
Oh,
No.
that's right. Montana doesn't know. It didn't have TV in the '80s.
Michael J. Fox.
Michael J. Fox from Family Ties. He was a
Oh,
show in the
yeah,
80s.
yeah.
Who I had such
that
a
was
crush
his
on Michael J.
character.
Fox.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Oh, he does look
But
kind of like
he was a buttoned-up Republican,
Yeah.
know-it-all as his character. So, but that's what he gets portrayed looking like that. He's got that '80s do, but I think he could. It would be interesting to see him shape, but he can't do that now, like because then people would, as much as all the hype is that women are the ones who get their looks dished. People would be like, "Oh my gosh, he's crazy! He pulled the Britney Spears shaving his head." So,
Yeah, because I remember when during the Al Gore George Bush election, there was only one previous presidential election in history where the shorter person won.
yep. His husband is hilarious. I mean, Twitter loves him. Chasten, like you guys. Follow
Which
him?
he had to have picked his own name.
You think
Doesn't
he
that
did?
seem like a name a gay man would pick? My name is Chasten. Boot edge.
Boot edge. But no, they're a fun couple. It was cool to see them on Time, the cover of Time. Like that was to me it was big. I got a little misty eyed because it's like, oh wow, that's come a long way to.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was James Buchanan. We'll see what happens with Mayor Pete. I would love to see him as the nominee. Do I think he's going to get it? He's got a long track, but I don't know. He's got a bright future ahead of him. So I don't know what he does in Indiana though, because I heard an interview with him a couple months back, maybe 2 years ago now, where they were like, "Are you going to run for president?" And he was, of course, saying, "I'm just focused on being mayor." But they were like, "But what else am I going to do in Indiana?" He's like, "I can't run for governor. I can't run for Senate because just the way the politics of it were all working." So yeah, I don't know what he does next. So
He could work at Kohl's.
he could. Coles. All right, so presidents. Well, so we'll stay tuned to Mayor Pete and see if we have our first out gay president. Because again, while James Buchanan, I guess, lived an out life, he wasn't.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily, we can't as easily apply the rainbow flag to him. Although we will. All right. Did you?
Yeah.
Say anything else?
No.
So next topic, we'll get a little deep here. So on June 5th, 1981, so almost 40 years ago, the Center for Disease Control, so the CDC, released an article which basically reported the first known cases of HIV/AIDS. So they have this morbidity and mortality weekly report, and they described a rare lung infection called, I won't pronounce the medical name, but it's known as PCP, and 5 young, what were previously healthy gay men in LA. They all had unusual infections indicating that their immune systems were not working, and 2 had died at the time the report was published. And so this kind of stirred some thinking amongst the medical community once this was published. Immediately after, they got notified of more cases of more gay men in LA, New York, San Francisco, with similar issues. And so they saw a cluster of cases of rare and unusually aggressive cancer, Kaposi's sarcoma, among, again, several gay men. So these were the first cases. So at the time they weren't, they didn't call it HIV/AIDS, but later these 5 cases were reclassified as AIDS cases. Pretty heavy stuff. I mean, with AIDS, so 1981, the crisis is breaking out. Since then, we've, it's severely impacted not just the LGBT community, but the world at large. I mean, they've had 70 million cases of HIV reported since 1981, and over 700,000 deaths just in the U.S. Across the globe, 35 million people have succumbed to AIDS. So, pretty heavy stuff, like I said. Today, well, at least last reported by the CDC, nearly 37 million people living with HIV/AIDS worldwide, and daily, folks get still infected with HIV. There's 40,000 cases reported per year of HIV. So still a severe issue that impacts, again, not just the LGBT community, but the community at large.
Well, it shows a lot how far we've come, actually, we're describing them as living with HIV instead of dying of HIV.
Yeah.
Because I'm 36, so I was right at that age to where the news of AIDS was everywhere. And when you came out of the closet, when I did at 15, my parents said, I don't want you to get AIDS and die, and I don't want someone to kill you because you're gay. Like, AIDS was just over everything. You could not take the concept of being gay and AIDS and divide it.
Right, I agree, yeah.
They went hand in hand. And we're not to that now. It's basically not for everyone, but if you take your meds and you have access to healthcare and all that, it can be a chronic disease, which before it was a death sentence.
Death sentence, yeah.
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 Yeah, in the 80s and 90s, it just wiped out people. I mean, 80s was pretty significant. In the 90s, you started to see not the rate at which new cases were reported wasn't as significant. I think the total number of cases or deaths kind of hit a peak in 2004. There were like 1.9 million cases of AIDS reported, which was pretty significant. But again, to your point, we've come a long way, right? So
and I feel like now, like, people are living with it, and now it seems like the medicine is not as harsh. Like, the first real medicine that helped, like, arrest the reproduction of the virus and everything was so harsh on the body, and there was, like, massive number of pills and this cocktails, and so and so now, it's a lot more manageable, and it's less side effects and things like that. So it's
But the stigma of AIDS and HIV is still we're still recovering from that.
It's interesting because I feel like in 10 years ago it started to the stigma's always been there, but people were making jokes of it. I remember watching a TV show, a sitcom, and they were making, I don't want to go there because my baby's going to get AIDS, but they said it in the context of a joke. But I think now, given the sensitivity of where we are now, I I think folks, you maybe couldn't make a joke like that now. I mean, again, people still do, but it's just, yeah, the stigma still persists, right?
You know, one thing that's interesting I feel about the stigma is I feel the stigma is out there, and it exists. But, you know, one of my friends, like I went on a ski trip with a group of friends. And so this one lady, she was talking to us and she was like, oh, you know, like, how do you feel like if you met somebody and they were HIV positive, would it be a deal breaker? And so like, my friend and I were both like, no. I mean, in this day and age, like, you know, with medicine and protection and whatever, it's like, you know, if somebody's like undetectable, it's like almost essentially like, you know, not having it. And so it wouldn't be an issue for me. Whereas, but so it's weird that like, as far as we've come, and I mean, I feel we are kind of on the verge of almost a cure. They're testing like a vaccine and clinical trials and stuff. That there is still the stigma of, you know, that's out there. It's kind of weird.
I mean, I had a exposure incident, and I immediately went to like the doctor the next day to get PEP because I was you know, paranoid. But I mean, it's not to say that I want to get it, which I don't, but because I don't think anyone does. But it was still like all these red flags. It's like, you know, oh my gosh,
yeah.
What if I get it? But you know, to your point, like nowadays, if I dated someone like that, then I think I would be okay with that. If you would ask me 5 years ago, I'd have been like, definitely no. But now, as I've become more educated on the disease and the healthcare support that's out there, then I definitely it wouldn't be as big an issue now.
Yeah, it is interesting too. So I feel like because it's so prevalent in the gay community, we're not really forced, but we're just automatically like more educated than I think the general population about it. And it's interesting because I was with a group of straight friends about 2 years ago, and the subject came up. And, you know, when I said, like it wouldn't be a deal breaker for me, like if there was this open discussion and everything. But two of my straight girlfriends, they were like, absolutely no.
No.
If somebody has that, wouldn't even consider dating them.
Yeah, it's different, like you said, because I went to two different doctors. So a couple years ago, I had mono, and I was going to a straight doctor, and she, when I was telling her about kind of my sexual history, she was kind of taken aback, and then because what she didn't know, we didn't know I had mono, so we went through all these things. First, she thought I had a sinus infection, so gave me medicine for that. Then she thought I had the flu and gave me stuff for that. And then she was like, before she went down the you have mono, she was like, oh, you have HIV. She's like, you likely have HIV. You need to go get tested for that.
Damn.
And I was like, whoa. And so I got tested, came back negative. But I was like, and then she's like, oh, I guess you have mono. Like, it wasn't, I mean, not in that. But it was just, but when I was talking to her again about my sexual experiences, she was very much like I said, taken aback.
Yeah.
When I was debating on when I was actually going to get on PrEP, because I was newly single, I was like, and I wanted to be cautious. I went to a gay doctor, and they were very much more supportive and nurturing and kind of talking about it in a very like nurturing sense versus that straight doctor, which I will never go back to.
Okay, so who here used condoms recently 100% of the time when you're single? You know, I mean, there's even ignorance within the gay community.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I'm not saying I haven't had specific instances where I didn't, but I mean, 99% of the time I did. Because it's, I don't know, I'm just paranoid about it. But
yeah, and me too. Like, well, it's not just HIV; it's any STD.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Obviously, well, I grew up, as a Catholic too. So although Catholics aren't supposed to use them, like I was scared because I come from a long family of teenage pregnancies, and I have had sex with women, and I was always paranoid. So it's like, I'll never do anything without a condom. So, but like you said, even still, we get laxed.
And once you introduce alcohol,
yeah. Sometimes you're like,
like, what the hell's a condom?
If you loved me, baby, you wouldn't
Right?
make me put on a condom.
And then you're like, what's your name?
Get
Get out of my car. I'm not wearing a condom.
We've come along. We've come a long way. I mean, it's not that it's perfect, but in terms of the stigma, the access to healthcare. I mean, you have things like the Affordable Care Act that have helped us come. You know, now we have access to healthcare. You've got things like legalized gay marriage, so you can have access to healthcare through your partners. But a long way since the 80s when Ronald Reagan was the president, which coincidentally on June 5th of this week in 2004, Ronald Reagan passed away. Of course, you know
who I am obsessed with.
I know.
All this week.
Good or bad?
I don't. Okay, so I'm obsessed with all presidents. They're fascinating to me. So I don't look at it like the worst president could be just as fascinating as the so-called best president. Yeah. But lately, I've been watching a lot of Reagan videos just to figure out who he was, and really when the Alzheimer's set in. And he's just he's very interesting, and I'm trying to see the parallels between Trump. Like, how engaged is he?
You think Trump? You're trying to see if he's got Alzheimer's or
well, people like my dad say Trump and Reagan are the two greatest presidents this country will ever see, and I'm like, but on paper they're not that alike.
Yeah, and I would say, I mean, I honestly think Trump has some kind of mental issue. I think Reagan got dementia, but I think before that I don't think he had a lot of mental issues.
No, not mental issues, but when did that dementia set in? Because it's not like
I think
one day you wake up and you don't know.
No, I think it started to set in mid-presidency.
Well, I think it's fascinating.
I think a lot of people admit that he started to get forgetful, and that's why he was kind of the...
But that could also be like somebody in their late 70s.
It could be.
Yeah. Like Bernie Sanders.
Oh, did you see what happened like this recently with speaking of old people, where they're talking about Fox News and the president, Trump, are talking about Nancy Pelosi and how she's got...
The doctored...
Yeah. But
fake slurring video.
They're talking about it like it's real, and then like I think the campaign against her is genius from like it's evil and bad for society. But in terms of what they're trying to do, and because then I see on Twitter all these people saying, "Oh my gosh, Pelosi, she needs to step down." They've created this
Nancy can't be bothered
of
that she's sick, and so that's gonna continue with her.
And I would say this, even before any of this, like being from a rural state. That, you know, they don't like the liberal whatever. In a lot of those places, all the Republican or Trump has to say about like a congressperson, etc., is they're going to vote with Pelosi, so vote against him.
Right, from that liberal San Francisco.
And so now if you add this, we're like, oh, now she's sick or whatever. I mean, yeah.
We've come a long way from Reagan. When Reagan, obviously, with Reagan, with the whole AIDS crisis, not high on the LGBT community's spectrum. He didn't mention the first cases of AIDS until 1985. So I went back and watched that press conference.
85?
In 1985, when he was asked about it, and I was looking.
I thought it was 89.
Those dementia things, yeah. So he mentioned it in 85. They asked him like, Are you doing enough? And he said, yeah, it's the number one priority of my administration. It's a top priority with us. He said, yes, there's no question about the seriousness of this and the need to find an answer. So he started off with granted, 1985 different than 1981. I think, started off with good answers.
He was just ignorant. He is not exposed to what being gay was. To him, it was just a scary, like, you can choose to do that or not. I have a book of his letters he wrote for from the time 1930s. Do you have that too?
Yeah.
And in it, there's a portion where he talks about gay people, and I forget what it was, what context, but it's kind of like we need to have compassion, but it's also mental illness. And at what point do you hate somebody for thinking that, and able to separate? Well, they just don't know any better. Yep. It doesn't make them any less dangerous to gay people in general.
But the thing is. So even if he doesn't know any better, I feel if there's a health crisis facing the U.S., for example, like Ebola, the government was full stop, we need to arrest this shit and get it taken care of. And so regardless of your personal feelings on it, if there's a health crisis facing the country and you're the president.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, in which he failed to do. Like, so again, he answers the question, right? Yeah, there's no question about the seriousness of it. But then, like, pressed against saying, hey, there's a scientist out there who was a big scientist within the cancer research area and had invested a lot of research on AIDS and HIV. They asked him, well, they're saying that this effort's not enough. And of course, what he came back with, he's like, look, I think within our budgetary restraints, it seems like the $126 million that we're giving to this is sufficient in a single year. Well, what he actually said is, I think with our budgetary restraints and all, it seems to me that the $126 million in a single year for research has got to be something of a vital contribution. So it's like he started off with the answer, okay, and then he comes back, it's like, but I think we're giving it enough money. And like the answer is no, right?
Well, the response to AIDS at the time by conservative Christians was, well, this is what happens when you
this is
are
God's
sodomites.
answer to,
So God will sort it out. So his reaction really was, there's nothing we can do. This is your fault.
Yeah.
And God gave it to you because he needs to punish you, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
That's, to me, where his thinking was, which is horribly wrong. He was also almost 80 years old at the time and lived a completely different time. And it's tragic as it is. It's the way people thought back then. Yeah. And many people still do to this day.
Yeah. Well, and he was asked too, because at that point, Ryan Wright's case had been out too, and lots of kids being infected through blood transfusion. So he was asked, if you had younger children, would you send them to school with the child with AIDS? And his answer was, I'm glad I don't have to deal with that.
Oh yeah.
So, which again was kind of like, is that
lazy?
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. So, I read Rock Hudson's biography, and he was really good friends with Nancy and Ronald Reagan. And so when he got AIDS, he too didn't want to be very public about it because, he had this persona of like this macho guy. And so at the time, the leading medical technology was in Paris. And so he actually went over there for treatments. But in the book, they talked a lot about, Ronald Reagan wasn't doing anything. And so a lot of his friends were like, you need to talk to him because you're a good friend of his. And maybe if you talk to him, and he said, I won't. Like, kind of, that's not my place. I don't really want to.
Nancy did, though. She was like the...
But probably later, too. It was, it was just kind of interesting that he didn't want to admit. And actually, he didn't want to go public with it. And they also said, you need to go public with this because if you can get it, America will think... Because Rock Hudson was this beefy, like dreamboat. And everybody thought... And he wasted away to nothing. And people said, you need to go public because if the public sees you and sees this is what it can do, and if you can get it... And he wouldn't, but basically, he had went to Paris for like, I don't know, he went there a couple times. So he went there for a final attempt at treatment. And when he came back, like they said, don't go back. Just, we'll keep you comfortable until you. And that's when because somebody had wanted to write his biography and they wanted to include all this. And he said no. And basically, when he was on his deathbed, he said, bring her in and have her write this.
Yeah. Huh.
You know who did accept him and tried to help him, and she just died last
Doris
week.
Day.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there were all these articles about why isn't she such a huge gay icon because of how accepting and understanding she was Doris Day, who was starred in I don't know how many movies with him and had a talk show, and I think it was one of the last interviews he did.
Yeah. And so actually in his biography, they talked about that, and so she had, done all these movies with him, they were good friends, and then she went to do the talk show, and so they didn't see each other frequently, and when he showed up for the interview, she didn't even recognize him because he is just that thin. Yeah.
Just on this again, what I would perceive as the tone deafness of Ronald Reagan. One of the things, so he had this press conference, right? Big deal, first time. I mean, he didn't proactively talk about HIV. Like someone from the press corps asked him the question. So that's how it was kind of broached for the first time in public that he addressed it. His reflection, though, because I was just kind of poking around at different things. Like he writes about the press conference, and to me, I was thinking, oh, maybe he'll talk about it because in the LGBT community's eyes, I think it was a big deal. It was like finally he mentioned it, but his takeaway from that press conference that he wrote in his diary is like, oh, press conference went well. Early phone calls were 86% favorable. Most questions were coming on summit, some on trade. So nothing about, oh yeah, we got to address this HIV/AIDS crisis.
Yeah.
So a little tone deaf. I know the conservatives, praise him. As a kid, my family's not conservative. They're very I won't say very liberal, but more liberal.
Very Democrat.
Very Democrat, I guess it's the right way to say. Reagan was not high up on our list either. So.
It is kind of interesting, AIDS thing aside, I do feel like all of my life, when anybody talks about Ronald Reagan, they're either he was the best president or he was the worst president. He was very polarizing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't feel that strongly about him now, just because.
No, but I feel people that were
right.
at the time. Yeah.
But because I do try to take an approach, like Kendall, you're talking in terms of studying them as leaders and whether they were effective or not, and kind of their tactics versus just purely approval.
Well, part of the reason people loved him, white people loved him, is because he gave a lot of the dog whistles that Trump is now known for. His campaign slogan at one point was "Make America Great Again." That's not an original to Donald Trump.
Right.
Donald Trump stole that from Ronald Reagan. And he went to Klan places in Mississippi and talked about states' rights, which was a complete dog whistle to like...
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So part of the reason why I think a lot of the same people that love Trump love Ronald Reagan is because he was giving that kind of like wink, wink.
Yeah.
And I'm going to keep this country white attitude.
And at the time, he was also a political outsider. He was an actor. He was governor of California, but people thought he could never be president. And actually, it was one or two elections. I think it was one election before he was actually elected that at the Republican National Convention, he was kind of getting a lot of momentum, but he kind of was like, he took the attention and was kind of, he didn't like shut it down, but eventually he was like, this isn't my time. Because I think he knew he would be...
he knew Carter would win in 76.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
He'd be back.
And
yeah.
so, but he... but yeah, he was like a political outsider. And so I think that's also like similar to Trump.
I do want to say there was an article last week, I think it was Slate or Daily Beast, where they talk about it was confirmed that the first AIDS case was confirmed to be in the early 60s by a black boy. But we watch history so much. I mean, it's just easier to get people to feel sorry for and to think a white life is more important than the original face of AIDS, which is really a black person. So are we ever talking about the huge AIDS epidemic in Africa? No.
Right.
Because we can't put that little Ryan White, who was that little boy who got it from a blood transplant, we can't put that face on it because we can't identify.
Similar to Ebola as well. I mean, like, once the Western world, it was no longer an issue. I mean, people were still dying by the droves in Africa. And sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, it's true. One person got it or something. Like a handful of people got it in the U.S. How many people died in Africa?
Yeah, there were a couple. Yeah, exactly. And once it was eradicated in the U.S. and Europe, and it's like, okay, it's contained in Africa. People, I mean, they weren't doing anything about it. It was still,
the crisis all of a sudden subsided. Yeah. Such as the times we live in, huh? So maybe something a bit more, maybe a bit less heavy. Let's go to a pop culture topic.
All right. Okay, so we talked about Rock Hudson, another huge Hollywood star that was born 93 years ago on June 1st was Marilyn Monroe. Mm-hmm. She was actually born Norma Jean Mortensen.
Mortensen.
Which does not fit the sexy woman she was. She was born June 1st, 1926 in Los Angeles and spent most of her childhood in orphanages and foster care before marrying her first husband at 16. She wanted to be a star since she was 5 years old, but her husband didn't support her, so she dumped the loser, changed her name to Marilyn Monroe, and eventually became one of the most famous movie stars in history. Her failed marriages to baseball great Joe DiMaggio and playwright Arthur Miller were constantly in the tabloids and worsened her issues with depression and substance abuse. She died at her home on August 4th, 1962, from what was deemed a suicide from barbiturate overdose.
I didn't realize it was a suicide. Like, that's what it was deemed.
It was deemed a suicide because when they did the toxicology report, it was well over the suggested dosage for the drug she was taking. So it was like, you didn't take half a pill too many.
So it wasn't
You,
like a Heath Ledger and
eat your
Michael Jackson
bottle.
sort of thing.
No. But she always struggled with depression, and
Yeah.
I think that's part of the reason why she's a gay icon.
Her mom also had a lot of mental illness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And gave her up for foster care at a young age.
But I think she also financially took care of her mom when yeah.
She was a very complicated person. I didn't really understand her until the movie My Week with Marilyn with Michelle Williams came out. Have y'all seen that?
Mm-hmm.
It was so good. You understood like her insecurity and her charisma.
So
and
insecure. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how like she had all this talent, but she would suppress it, and people would be like, "But you're Marilyn Monroe," and she would think so poorly of herself. It was amazing. I wish Williams had won that Oscar, unless Meryl Streep beat her, which I think she did.
Who was the guy in that movie? Do you
I
remember?
don't think it was a famous person.
No,
I don't remember.
I thought it was some like actor. That was I don't know.
But Marilyn Monroe is kind of a gay icon. Or do y'all think she really, like, full force is? Because I look at her as a white, straight woman's icon.
I think she's like kind of an American icon. I feel like a lot of gays probably like, I don't know if identify, but look at her as a bit of an icon. I think compared to some other, I mean, she's timeless, but she's also like born in the 20s, and so maybe getting less so for some. But I think maybe not as much of a gay icon as like some others, but I still feel like gays either not identify with her, but
Gay icon because she was glam and
Well, it's
also
not
tragic.
like a Judy or Eliza or Cher type person.
No,
where
I
it's
agree,
like
yeah.
understood. But people like Anna Nicole Smith and Lady Gaga are like,
yeah,
I'm like, they say they're obsessed with her.
yeah.
Because I think they
Anna
see
Nicole
a
Smith, totally
gorgeous,
obsessed with her,
yeah,
yeah.
they see a gorgeous, glamorous woman who is also very vulnerable, and I think
Yeah.
they see themselves in that. Whereas we look at, obviously I'm speaking broadly to my icons, we look at kind of ugly ducklings that were like strong people that overcame shit.
Yeah.
And like, you know, can we identify with Marilyn Monroe? I mean, it's not my natural hair color. I dye my hair gray.
No,
She
but I
dyed
mean,
hers
you see,
blonde.
like,
True.
That's the
yeah,
only
like,
similarity.
I don't want to say minority, but somebody who had like a lot of issues to overcome in her life, and you know, she made it big, but still, like you said, she was so insecure about herself, even though she was Marilyn Monroe, and yeah,
Well, and there are all these conspiracy theories about JFK had her killed.
Yeah.
Because she was sleeping with him, and she was calling him saying we're going to be together and all that kind of stuff, which I don't think he did. I mean, he was sleeping with so many people.
Yeah.
I think she was
Well,
the
here's-
least of his worries.
Here's the, like, because I read a book about JFK, and here's what I read, or what this book said was the kind of, if you do believe the conspiracy theory. So he had an affair with her. He had an affair with multiple women, and he was not, you know, really in denial. Like, everybody knew he was having these affairs. The thing that was over the top when he had his birthday party in Madison Square Garden, and she got up there and performed, and that's when he said, she's getting out of control.
Yeah.
Like, so, but...
Well, and then they went to like an after party, and she was all over him. And yeah, he was
Yeah.
getting nervous, but he was sleeping with many women at the
He
time.
was, yeah.
I don't think he had her killed though. Although I'm not confident to say he would never do
Yeah.
that
And you don't know
because
if
they were shady.
it
Kennedys
wasn't
were
him,
shady
if
as
it was
hell.
the Kennedy family. You know,
Right.
But,
She
yeah.
was beautiful though. But I remember growing up thinking she died at 36. She was old. That's how old I am. Oh my god.
yeah.
And we have the same hips.
Why would they have had her killed though? Like I don't understand.
Because she was getting very chatty, saying
Yeah, but he was a womanizer. Like why her?
He was, so...
because she was going to come out with it
'cause
in 1962.
Because I actually read a book about the Kennedys, and so Jackie, similar to I think the Clintons, like at a young age when Jackie met JFK, she knew he was a womanizer, but she also just connected with him intellectually, and she just loved him, and
her dad was a womanizer, so it wasn't
she
like, oh my
basically made the decision: I can either, you know, not put up with his womanizing and not have him in my life, or I can put up with that and have him, and she chose to. And so she would actually, like when they would have state dinners at the White House and stuff, she would oh, I think Jack would like her. I'm going to sit her at our
I've heard that,
table. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But it was very, I think, in Jackie's mind, very classy. Like, he did it, but I think the Marilyn Monroe thing, she started getting, like, just overtly in the public about it. And, I don't know if they were around then, but, like, I would imagine the tabloids would run crazy with it versus, like, some sophisticated woman having dinner at the White House and, like, it ends up happening. And I think that was the thing. Like, she, like...
It was like the dating the prince dating the
yeah, and I think so at
woman.
the birthday party she got up and sang happy birthday Mr. President in a very provocative way, and he was like, and then I think she got in it either there or at the after party, she got in his lap in front of everybody, and
She was obsessed with him.
Yeah, and I think that was like, she needs to be stopped. Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing is there were two women probably in 1962 that had that baby voice. And it was Marilyn and Jackie. So I think he was attracted to little baby voices.
He liked babies.
JFK, yeah. He would love my voice, my natural voice.
Right.
That's your natural voice. Could you imagine if that was your natural voice? Oh my gosh, you would be.
I can.
That you're like, I can because it is my natural voice.
Yeah.
So I mean, on Marilyn though, like I think you asked whether she's an icon. Like she's never done anything for me. Maybe because
right, I think she's a straight white woman icon.
Yeah,
they all want to have her body.
But like
yada yada,
body yada yada. But like Gaga. I mean, you mentioned like, did you guys see Gaga doing her at the Met Gala recently?
I did not.
Yes, that was a reference to her.
My gosh.
And Madonna in the same one.
That
same
was
time.
Pretty epic. Like she,
I love Gaga.
She's such a performer. Like, I mean, to do that entrance, it's like it's funny because you watch some of these women like that get so take that so seriously. They take these pictures in their nice gowns and whatnot, and then you see Gaga, who's like, I'm not just gonna wear a nice gown. She had basically reveals like a drag.
Well, the
queen.
theme was camp.
Reveals. I'm corrected by our resident RuPaul's expert. So, what were you saying? The thing was camp. Oh,
yeah, the theme was camp. Which, ironically, RuPaul was there, and everyone was like, oh, if anyone's going to slay a camp category, it's going to be RuPaul. And he showed up in some little Sunday suit.
Was he
looking
dressed?
like he was going to teach Sunday school.
Was he dressed in drag or as?
No, he was in a suit.
Oh. Well, that's yeah. I don't know. So Marilyn, not in terms of like gay icon. There's like. What's the rhyme? There's Judy.
I don't remember. Is that from Will and Grace?
It's from Will and Grace. Yeah. But anyways, yeah. Marilyn's not there at the top.
No, I don't think because I think some people are like gay only icon, right? Like they're a gay icon.
Yeah.
She's an American icon, like Elvis.
Yeah, and I think she appeals to some gays,
right?
For various reasons. But
I think she's a tragic American figure, like
I feel
Michael
bad for
Jackson,
her.
even.
Yeah. I honestly feel. She was very naive.
Or Donald Trump.
Very beautiful. Let's not go there. And I do feel like Hollywood got a hold of her and was just like Elton John's song about her when she passed away. Like Hollywood created a superstar and pain was the price she paid.
Tragic.
She was like crazy, outrageously, once in a lifetime beautiful, though.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're just like the bisexual guy's like, nah, doesn't do it for me.
You don't think so?
No. Mm-mm.
Why?
I don't know. It was very. I don't know. It was very manufactured to me. That's sort of.
Do you think? Like, see, because I feel like she had more natural beauty than like.
Well, she did nude pinups too.
Because I mean, I feel like now there's so much like airbrushing and this and that. Where I feel back then it was like a lot more. She had to have it.
Maybe I don't know. Like, honestly, I haven't studied her that much, but I like. Do you see the
hate
pictures?
her? Just admit it. I can
God, he hates
tell.
her.
I know.
How did she make the cut? Why are we talking
Why do you
about her
hate
this week?
her?
I'm kidding.
God.
But I will admit, I mean, gay icon. Like I do think she does have some relevance in the LGBT community.
Thank you.
Yes, that. I mean, I'm not the
bias hater apparently.
What's that? The bias.
The bias hater.
Part of the LGBT plus, but not the B. Yes. So
no B here.
In the spirit of just because she's a quasi. Marilyn was a quasi icon. Anything else that happened in pop culture that's relevant that we want to discuss?
I believe Sex and the City debuted this week on June 6, 1998, and lasted 6 seasons until the final episode in 2004. based on Candace Bushnell's 1997 book of the same name, and followed character Carrie Bradshaw and her best friends Samantha, Charlotte, and Miranda as they dealt with their love lives and careers in New York City. I never really watched this show when it was out. Well, I didn't have HBO. HBO was like, back then it was like a premium network, which was like $20 more a month. I didn't have to have $20 more a month. Shit.
Like, bitch, I was poor.
Okay, I was trying to, that was bar cover for me.
You were still living at home at that time.
No,
98?
Well, 2004. It wasn't.
2004.
I didn't come into my consciousness. I moved out in 2001. Until around that time. But it didn't really do anything. I've watched it later, like reruns, and I get it. But the gays sure do love it.
Yeah, so why do you think the gays love it so much? Because they're like New York fabulous.
New York fabulous, and also they're very blunt about sex, which gays are. I mean, once you're out, what's the taboo? You kind of, at least for me, let me speak for myself. There are no taboos with me. Like, once you're out, secrets be damned.
I feel especially when you're amongst either other gay people or people that are like don't care about the gay thing. Yeah, it's.
I also think it's a lot of stereotypes about women that could also be applied to gay men. They talk about dick size, they talk about fashion, they talk about getting drunk and dating and all that kind of stuff. So on a surface level, there's that connection to gay men.
I also feel too, and I kind of felt this way with Friends. Like, you watch like these young single people living in New York, and it's like, who wouldn't want that life? Like, they live.
That's like a straight Sex in the City.
Yeah, and so, but
without the sex.
Part of you subconsciously is like, oh my god, I want that life, and that's kind of why you, watch it. And so I agree. You know, like, gays might look at this as, oh my god, they're fabulous. You know, they're single, living in New York. They're talking about dick size. They're,
I did have a friend in 2003 that was like, in our little group, she'd say, oh my god, where's Sex in the City? And she was giving people like, I'm Candace and she gave me Miranda. Who wants to be Miranda?
Well, I probably am Miranda.
I was about to say,
but
that would be Tony.
yeah.
Wait, I think we're all Miranda though. I thought I was more
Kim
of a.
Cattrall's character?
Kim Cattrall is
Samantha.
Samantha. You're Samantha.
You're Samantha.
No, I don't think
You
so
were
at
Samantha.
all. I'm really
Inappropriate.
I am. So, what is the redhead Cynthia Nixon?
Yeah, Cynthia Nixon.
I'm Miranda.
Miranda.
I am Miranda. She is a lesbian.
Yeah. Which you.
Short
think
hair,
I'm more
pearls,
Charlotte
lawyer.
Yes.
Ball buster.
I feel like, you're more her than, but you're a little bit of, what's the other, the dark hair woman?
Charlotte.
Oh, no, I do not
Charlotte.
like her, please.
Yeah.
See, I think that's who I'm most like.
Like
Charlotte?
Please.
Right.
Look, I'm
Miss
just being honest,
Prim and
okay?
proper. No.
Yeah. Prim and proper, very
I was gonna say
conservative.
stupid.
That's, no. That's a hard no.
Yeah, exactly. Like, not 1%. Who are you,
But then she had to
Thomas?
think about it. Like, what if you
I don't
have
think
to
you're
be
any of them.
somebody?
I'm not any of them. I'm just the gay excess.
Are you like a mix?
They didn't have any brown people
You're like
on
a
that
third.
on that show. So,
You're an extra.
did she even date any brown people? And
Who?
did they date any?
It wasn't allowed back then.
Carrie?
Yeah, Carrie or any of them?
I don't think so.
There wasn't a lot of diversity.
When
in
was
that
this?
show.
The early 2000s, 90s?
98 to 2004.
Yeah.
No.
America wasn't ready for interracial relationships.
No, I'm sure she dated at least. They would have had to do that just like
A token? I don't even know if they did a token in that. What?
They did one in Friends, so it's like if they did it in
Wait,
Friends.
who was
sure.
the one in Friends?
Aisha Tyler.
Yeah, Aisha Tyler, Joey, and because
Joey.
they wanted to.
And Tom Selleck's mustache.
Yeah,
yeah.
he was a good character in that. But yeah, I mean
Monica.
Monica.
I know.
So
Monica. As they say in San Antonio.
Monica. The short last in San Antonio. Those are my cousins, and I'm proud of that. Sex in the City, though. Like, I didn't watch it when it was live, like when it was like on HBO, but it was on at nights, like at 10, like on whatever
The
the
reruns,
like
yeah.
Fox,
TBS.
not with TBS and like the local
Cartoon
channels.
Network.
Not CNN. What's the
NBC, CBS,
no,
ABC,
the
PBS.
like the off-brand channels. Oh, they're not off-brand.
TNT,
No,
UPN
not
type.
Bravo. It's like
Anyways, we
Oh
get the
my
point.
god.
like in San Antonio, it was called KAVB TV. It was like what's those ones that no one watches? Those stations, CTV,
The WB.
WB. Thank you. Yeah, it was like on the WB.
It was TBS.
TBS.
Thank you.
That's where I would watch it. And I'd go to sleep to that. And that's when I was like, I'm not gay. I just watch it because I was still in the closet.
It was your bi-side that was
watching it.
watching
Yeah, it was my bi-side. It was just like, everyone's watching it, so I got to figure, I was studying culture, right?
So when I talk to the chicks, I can like talk to something they relate to.
Yeah.
Talking about Cosmopolitans and Mr. Big.
Mr. Big. And you're like, God, why am I like in love with Mr. Big out of all these?
No, he was not. I liked the other, because she was...
the carpenter guy?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he was cute. Yeah.
Although now, because I guess and when there was an episode where he was putting hair, like he was losing his hair, and so he was putting in like the
carpenter guy?
Yeah, putting in like cream for his hair to stop the hair loss. Like now I'm having flashbacks to that all the time as I put shit in my hair so I don't lose it as quickly, or at least it doesn't look like.
Okay, so what exactly do you put in your hair?
What I have, it's nioxin.
He said shit.
Yeah, shit. Yeah. It's nioxin. I use the shampoo and the conditioner and then the treatment.
So I pretty much decided, because same last couple years, I mean, I'm thinning. I get sunburned on my head when I ride my bike. So I'm like, I don't want to do all that. So I did like get away from like just Target shampoo, and I order like some really nourishing. But I'm like, that's it. I'll do this. If I continue to lose, done. Whatever.
Yeah,
I'm fine.
Well, I got my hair cut the other day, and so I was like, like the last time I got my hair cut, I was like, oh my gosh, like I could see my scalp, and I was like, and then I was using the treatment more regularly, and so this time I cut it. Maybe she just didn't cut it as short. I was like, oh, it is working. So that's a shout out.
No, like a lot of my friends on Facebook the last couple of years have been using various things. They're like, oh no, it works. Yeah, but so like I've been going to the same guy to get my hair cut for like, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 years. And same, I was like about 2 years ago, I was like, I think my hair's thinning. Because I would notice like when I would get out of the shower, I could see scalp and I never could before. He goes, no, he goes, you're going gray and it just looks like that, but it's not. And I'm like, I don't think so. And then now I'm like, bitch, it is fucking,
it's going.
Yeah, it's going, but whatever.
You have any commentary on?
Oh, mine. I noticed mine was going bald at 20. Okay, 16 years ago. Thank you. And I started shaving my head at 21, and people were like, because I saw it way before
you were the
everyone
original,
else. Yes,
like,
the original thing. Yeah. But around the same time, Justin Timberlake started shaving his head, so people were like, "Oh, you're trying to be Justin Timberlake."
Like, fuck you, bitches.
And then one person asked if I had cancer. And I lied and said yes, just so he'd stop asking me.
Did they take you on a trip? Like, did you go to
like,
Disney World?
Make a wish.
Yeah.
My wish was to get a quality wig.
I'm sure
Still
that was
waiting
your
on
one
that.
wish.
Still waiting on that. We've come full circle then.
He's like, do you have
drag.
cancer? And you're like, yes, I want one wish. You know what I want.
Did he blow you?
Do you want cancer in you?
Yeah.
So, Sex and the City though, like the shoes, the fashion, you guys didn't. It was not a big thing for you.
That's not a thing for me.
No.
As you know,
we see.
Mr.
I'm familiar. I like the show, but it's also dated at this point.
Yeah, I do feel like I saw the an episode, like a clip a while back, and it feels much like Friends. Like it doesn't feel relevant anymore. It was the attitude at the time, but now it's kind of like you can't say things like that. Well, it's just like it seems a bit. It's not that they can't say things like that. It's just like that seems like out of touch now. Now it seems like versus like, don't you understand? We're all going through. You know, some of us are jobless, so that's kind of
we're too sensitive now.
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, I don't care what they say, but I know that there's a reaction out there that people are more sensitive to such things. So, all right. So that's our topics, I guess, for this week. Anything
for the first episode of Let's Talk About Gay Stuff.
Woohoo! Before we part ways with this conversation, anything else we want to discuss that we didn't mention?
Well, I have a question. Why am I the only one to wear an inaugural gown on this inaugural episode?
Because you're extra.
Yes.
About everything.
I spent all day at JCPenney. Pennies, as we say in the South.
Pennies, yes.
I feel like you're
How
more
long
like
it took to get
dress barn.
find white pantyhose in the egg.
I feel like you're more like a dress barn kind of girl.
Lane Bryant.
Lane Bryant.
Oh my God.
Them
these
hips,
shoulders.
though.
No, I'm the Lane Bryant.
These hips don't lie.
I'm the Lane Bryant customer.
All right. Well, that concludes our first episode of Let's Talk About Gay Stuff.
Our cherries are popped.
Our cherries are popped. Ow! All right.
Felt
So
good.
we're here.
We're queer.
Get used to it.
Thank you for listening to our podcast and getting to know us a bit more.
If you like what you heard, subscribe to hear future episodes. Visit our website, letstalkaboutgaystuff.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Let's Talk About Gay Stuff, and on Twitter at Talk Gay Stuff.
Also, give a listen to our sister podcast, our Spoopy podcast, available now.